We now welcome to the show. I don't know how many times it's been. It's been a few times that he's now been on the show. But the GM of your team, your town, your Philadelphia Flyers, Danny Briere.
Hey, guys.
Hey, nothing big's going on. Nothing big's happening.
Well, not anymore.
Yeah.
Do you feel like Santa Claus the day after Christmas today? Is it like you wish you could sleep in after what you went through yesterday?
Well, I slept like a baby last night, that's for sure. I got home last night and I crashed. I tried to get on my phone and start looking at things, and I couldn't even keep up. I had to kind of do an overview of the trades this morning.
And your overview is things are still pretty good. Like, you're pretty happy with where things are, right?
We're excited.
Yeah.
With the returns. There's always that knot in your stomach because we lost some good people, and we traded some players that had a big impact here over the years. In Scott Laughton and even Eric Johnson was here for a short time, but his impact in the locker room and in that short time is something that is scary to lose.
We're going to go through them, each trade with you real quick. Obviously, the big one is the Scott Laughton deal. You had a number of teams that were checking in on him throughout several weeks. But even up until the deadline yesterday, you had a number of teams checking in.
Yeah.
What was it about Toronto? Was it really the best deal, or was it a combination of it's a really good deal for us and we want to do right by Scotty and get him to his hometown?
Well, first and foremost, it was the best deal.
Yeah.
And we knew that Toronto, and they had early on told us that they were really interested in Scott. But I told them, I said, we're going to be looking for certain demands here that you're going to have to meet, and they said they would, but you never know for sure until it happens.
Right.
And as we saw the market go and the sentiment go and the forwards go, it just gave us more and more power.
Right. Leverage.
And that's why we were patient, but it was scary. There's a time where you're like, okay, how long do we push this off? How long do we hold it off? On a personal side, we were hoping that Toronto would work out with everything that the Laughton's family had to go through this season to send him home. That was, icing on top of it, to send a player that you really respect in a place that he wants to go. That was the icing. But it wasn't the reason why we made that trade.
They're not the same player, obviously, but between Laughton and like a Rantanen and a Nelson, like once those names were getting floated out there, I mean, we were surprised that Rantanen was available at all before the deadline. That face kind of tells me you're a little bit surprised as well.
Yep.
I don't know if it was necessarily a thing where you're waiting for that trade to kind of set the market. The Nelson thing felt like that, if that had gone on longer, maybe that makes your day yesterday a little bit more complicated. Would you agree with that? Or
yes, and I would agree. So what I would say is that on Wednesday and Thursday, Rantanen was holding everything in the market. Everybody wanted to see the top teams. I shouldn't say everybody. The top teams were waiting to see what was happening with him. Then they got a sense of, okay, this is what's going to happen with Rantanen. But now all of a sudden, the Islanders can't re-sign Nelson. Now Nelson's up, and teams are holding for him now. They see if they can get in to him. So we were hostage of those two players mostly. Rantanen Wednesday, Thursday, Nelson yesterday morning until those trades started going off the books. Then it loosened up, and we started getting more and more calls because there's a lot of teams left now without the big forwards that they were looking for.
An interesting thing for me, Danny, with Scott, I mean, I know over the last couple of years teams were asking about him, and you were reluctant to move him. At some point in that time, did you ever have an offer similar to what you ultimately settled for yesterday and decided maybe it just wasn't the right time? Or was this ultimately you just being patient, knowing that when the right time came, you would get the right offer?
It's a little bit of everything.
Okay.
We got similar offers, not quite as good before. Because of everything coming together yesterday, and the market being good for the sellers, running out of forwards out there. So that was that. I think that gave us the chance to get the prospect on top of it. So that was great. But at the same time, the timing, Scott. We talked about rebuilding our culture. He was a big part of that,
right?
And he's going to leave, his footprint hopefully for years to come. What he did with our young guys, and the professionalism that he showed with our young guys the last couple of years was important to have around.
It was an interesting. The other two moves that you made, they're not really under the radar. The Eric Johnson one was right. It was one that kind of came in at the last minute. He goes back to a team that he spent.
That was more of a
years.
favor for Eric. Yeah.
Well, so how important is that? Because in the grand scheme of things, right? Like if you look at this, and I view it from the perspective of like, I don't know, agents, players, free agents in the future. You sent Scott Laughton home, got a great return for him, but he got sent home. Eric Johnson got sent back last minute, favor, like doing the right thing. He now has a chance to either play or to help mentor a team that has a legitimate chance at a cup. How much of the decision-making process is, doing right by a guy you knew that was kind of the end of the line here for Eric Johnson? Like, how important is the human element to making those trades as much as the return?
Hopefully it helps down the road, but it's not the reason why we did it. It was to really help Eric. He's been such a good soldier, not playing, mentoring the young guys, going out of his way to keep things light around the locker room, promoting the Flyers brand everywhere he goes. And he told me, he says, look, the only place I'd really like to go to get a shot at is going back home to Colorado. If that doesn't work, I don't want to go anywhere. I want to be here. I'll do whatever you want. I'll even come back next year, help your young guys, So, when Colorado called and we started discussing it, it's something I was reluctant to do. But the more I thought about it and how good of a soldier Eric had been with us, and at the end of the day, you're right. It might give us, we talk about treating our players right, our people right in this organization. We felt that was just the right thing to do for him.
Now, in the case of Kuzmenko, you got a very brief window to kind of check out the player. Honestly, going into the deadline, you had to evaluate all options. Did you think that a third would ultimately be on the table for him? Because, we kind of said, like, if you don't intend on maybe signing the extension now, you leave the door open for the offseason. We were kind of like, a fifth-round pick would be swell. I'll be honest. I thought that was pretty solid return. Maybe it's the seller's market.
That was part of it, too. Every time I talked to teams and they were asking, up front, what are you doing? What do you have? We'd always say, well, there's Kuzmenko. If you're looking for, a cheap return that you don't want to overspend on. And I think that's what happened yesterday morning. I think the Kings kind of struck out on a few other options before, and I got the call out of the blue, and we started discussing. And, you could tell they wanted to make a deal. They need him. I think it's a good addition. They're struggling on the power play.
Yeah.
That's the one area that he really helped us in, or on, in this short stint. And that one just made too much sense to go by, and that happened quick.
I have one last one in.
Go ahead, Russ.
Were there any players that you fielded calls on that you might not have expected that you weren't going to trade yesterday, but you start thinking about it's planting seeds? Those conversations are always planting seeds for the offseason. Did you get any intriguing calls that you're like, wasn't thinking that, but maybe?
Yes. There's always calls out of the blue that they mention players, and you take notes, the players that they like.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it goes both ways. We made some calls on certain players just to ask where they stand, are they moving. So it goes both ways. But, we took a lot of notes. You kind of realize it's a good day to get information on what type of players teams like and are kind of geared towards. So absolutely, we were able to gather some good information.
You got a question, Jackie?
Can I just ask one?
Just one, Jackie. Go ahead. Just one.
I was just curious with Kuzmenko, is there any thought of bringing him back in the offseason since he is a UFA? And I know John Tortorella spoke highly of him on Thursday. Yeah,
there's an outside chance, I would say. He left a good impression. He was a good teammate. He helped us on the power play. We only got 5 games, I believe, or 7 games? 5?
I think it was 7.
7 out of them. So 5 points. And he did well. He could be an interesting player but we're not going to overspend. He's not going to be in the same market that he is now. So it depends where they feel, and it depends how he plays too. He's going to LA. If he has a run in the playoffs and he does well, he might be back up, higher than we're probably willing to go.
Yeah.
So we'll see in the offseason.
I have to ask you one question about the team that's on the ice today, and in fact, a guy that's not on the ice today, and that's Cam York. Obviously, it's a coach's decision to do that, but I just want to kind of, see where you're at with him at this point, because this is a couple times this year where he's been that Torts has sat him. Like, I know he's not had as good a year as he had a year ago, but where are you at with Cam at this point?
But Cam, yeah, you're right. Cam took a huge step forward last year, and maybe the expectation towards him went up a little too quick, too high.
Yeah.
It's been a little bit more trying for him this season, but that's part of the development of a young defenseman. You're going to have ups and downs along the way. I'm not too worried about Cam York. I think he's strong enough mentally. He's already been through a lot. If you remember, 2 years ago, he was sent down to the minors early. He wasn't happy about that, and was one of the best things that happened to him. So I think he's equipped to deal with adversity. So I really believe strongly in Cam York. But he just hasn't played to the level that the expectations are at with him.
And that's fair.
Season.
Before you head out, there's something I have to bring up in the comments. It's an apology from a fan. It has nothing to do with you as a player, you as an executive. Kyle Adams checks in over on YouTube and says, I want to take this moment to formally apologize to Danny B. He came to the movie theater I worked at years ago, and I geeked out on him so bad, I forgot half the concessions he ordered. So,
bring back some memories. That's great.
So Kyle, it's been passed along.
There you go. That's good stuff.
The most interactive pregame show this side of the
I think you're forgiven. I think Danny forgives you for that. Right? Well, Danny, thank you for stopping by. Really appreciate it, especially after such a busy day yesterday.
Thank you, guys.
Get some rest, because we're going to have a lot to talk about as we approach the off season.
Sounds good.
Pretty
Thanks
big
for the support,
offseason.
guys. Oh yeah, it's another big one. Yeah,
Good,
coming up.
good stuff. Thanks, Danny.
Guys.
Thank you.
Danny Briere, Flyers general manager.